In this video lesson, we're going to talk about a technique called Alberti bass, which is frequently found in the left hand in classical music pieces for the piano, and also look at how to shift positions in the left hand. It's quite frequent in the left hand for piano music to play a bass note and then to jump up like that. And we want to develop a technique that will help us find the notes and keep the rhythm. So we're going to talk about these two concepts today. The first one, Alberti bass, is a way to take a chord. In this case, we're just going to use a simple C major chord in root position. That's the notes C, E, and G. And it sounds like that all together. But if you're just playing a piece like that in the left hand, after a while it can get a little bit monotonous. So what composers came up with was a way to vary and arpeggiate the notes and also give a kind of internal rhythm to the playing. So what they're going to do is just play one note at a time in a rhythmic manner of the chord and shift them back and forth like this. So instead of just hearing this, you're hearing. And if we take a few chords and make a little progression out of it, it's much more interesting a lot of times in pieces that go at a faster tempo, at a faster speed, to have this Alberti bass. Instead of just playing a C chord, an F chord, and a C chord to a G chord, and then C, with Alberti bass, we could have it sound like this. So that sounds, to the ear, a bit more interesting and exciting than this. So in order to have a good Alberti bass technique, we're going to keep our wrist loose in the left hand and move the hand back and forth like this, keeping it relaxed, and using the strength of that wrist right here and the arm to give a little more power and rhythmic consistency. If we just use the fingers alone, they will become fatigued fairly quickly. So we need the strength of the wrist and the muscles around that joint to help out. So we're going to, in the fingers, we're going to still keep them firm. We don't want to have loose spaghetti fingers where they're just flopping all over the place. That's not very helpful. But if we keep the fingers firm but not rigid, just strong, just if they're too tight, that's going to tense up the hand and create all sorts of mayhem. But if we keep them firm but still somewhat relaxed, we'll have a good sound and a good technique. So we're going to combine this idea of going back and forth with the wrist with a movement of the fingers, and it will look like this on a C major chord. And as you play faster, the motion is going to get much smaller. So if you play quickly, it will sound like this. So you're not seeing too much of this motion. It's just a slight movement like that. Okay, the next technique that we're going to look at is leaping from a bass note to a chord in the piano in the left hand. And what we want to do is use a little bit of the shoulder technique and the whole arm to do this. If we just move from the hand and from the wrist, that's going to be very difficult. But the muscles of the arm will help us remember the positioning very well. So we want to create a kind of arc motion. So it will be like this, an arc shape with our hand going back and forth, and it will look like this from above your vantage point on this video. Like that, back and forth. And you might want to try just playing this, playing a bass note, the C note, the low middle C with your pinky, and then playing a chord, the C major chord in second inversion, which is the notes G, C, and E all together and going back and forth like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And you might notice I have a little spring in the motion. So when we go down to the key bed, we're going to leap up and make that arc, and then come down to the key bed for the chord, and then leap up and come down to the key bed of the C. So we're going to use that little spring, pretend you're on a kind of little trampoline on the keyboard here, and that will help create a very beautiful tone in the piano and also keep the rhythm going and relax your arm. So have fun with that and try it out with different chords and different bass lines. And you'll see that quite frequently in the pieces in this book.